Our first topic for today is Sid and the VDP next steps.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. So this is a follow-on to the discussions we had on the reps. As you see, the VDP started Rep 2006, and there's a link in the notes to just the comments on that, as well as just reviewing some other past meeting minutes. So that kind of spawned a big discussion on a couple of things. One of the first ones is, what's the overall process once a report has been received? So the VDP is largely geared towards the outside world finding something with ROS. We scoped out what it is we're going to take in. So now once that comes in, what do we do? I've sketched up some ideas, but I'm really interested in your thoughts on what do we do once we receive a report in with a vulnerability for ROS.
Well, the biggest challenge that I see is, compared to Ubuntu, where we actually have the ability to change things, right? The biggest challenge that ROS has is that it's a large community where we don't actually have access to a large number of the projects that are actually included in what was our scope, Rep 2005?
Yeah.
Or 4, I get those confused.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah, I think what's happening here, at the beginning we had like a smaller scope that was more like within Open Robotics scope, so it was okay. Obviously there is a plane just right now. And
amazing timing.
Yeah, so, but one thing that we can keep in mind though, is that similarly to Debian, ROS has, like, most of the release repositories are under Open Robotics control. So making a new release with a patch can always be done, even if it's not like merged upstream and re-released by the maintainer upstream. Not saying that it should be the default case, but for like critical things that cannot move forward, there is still a way to do it, but it shouldn't be the default process. And yeah, default process, like we need to find how we would contact these maintainers and interact with them to get the thing like merged and released, fixed, merged and released.
Yeah, totally agree with Mikhail. We can always do the release, but I will say we sort of have a little bit of experience, not obviously exactly with security stuff, but in terms of doing like ROS 1 releases where parts of the sort of core stack aren't directly in control of Open Robotics. So it generally works out well for contacting the maintainers and having them do something. There are, of course, it just turns into a game of like herding cats and contacting random people on the internet, but it actually works surprisingly well. I think the challenge here, the additional challenge here is how to do it in a non-public way. So I don't have any particular recommendations, but like exactly what Mikhail said, we can always get stuff out. I suspect that for most things that they should, the maintainers will respond. I also put this comment in the in Rep 2006. If they don't respond in a reasonable amount of time, that sort of seems to me grounds to kick them out of Rep 2005.
Well, whatever quality, if they claimed a quality level, right, that said they would, right? Yes, agreed.
Yeah, exactly. But otherwise, yeah, I think I don't know how the contacting process works.
Well, so we actually have this already, right, in the build farm where people get emailed if they have test failures, and so we have contacts for anything that's actually released. Can we just rely on those? And those are not public. That would just be an email. Well, I guess it depends on the email.
ROS 2, as an example, the ROS 2 maintainer email is a public mailing list because we want
that was the example I was just about to use. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the question is we don't know whether they're public or not is really what it comes down to. So
I mean, it could become a thing in, like, we could also put that as a requirement. If you claim quality level something, you'll have to list one maintainer. Like, I don't know, your maintainer tag should be like a safe email address to contact, or like maybe it could be a thing we associate with the security part of the quality level.
Or potentially we add a new field to the package XML, which is security contact or whatever.
That's actually a really interesting idea. I like that. Because I really like currently like getting the test failures to our mailing list, right? That type of thing makes a lot of sense. But then obviously I don't want security disclosures to go there.
Yeah, big +1 for adding it to the XML. Hi everyone, by the way. Sorry I joined late. So one thing that Chris mentioned that caught my attention is he mentioned that if they don't respond to security reports, they might be removed from Rep 2005. And that implicitly indicates that we are already kind of like connecting, in this case, quality and security, which is something that from my experience so far is very painful. So it would be great if this can get to somewhere. So can you actually confirm, Chris, that from Open Robotics perspective, you are willing to make a relationship between Rep 2005 and Rep 2006, which I know there's already a relationship, but a stronger one in terms of quality, which traditionally is related to safety code-wise, is now going to have also a relationship to security.
I mean, I'll point out that Rep 2004 explicitly says that if you're quality level 1, then you have a VDP and you adhere to a given schedule, right? And so that's the part that we would be responding to. It already says that. I mean,
yeah, exactly. That's sort of my thinking is, I added some language in Rep 2005 to say that these packages point to, so essentially the chain is Rep 2004 more or less defines what the quality levels are. Rep 2005 are the packages that accept this quality level, and Rep 2005 points to Rep 2006 as this is what we're going to do for the vulnerability disclosure. So that's the chain I think is currently in place, or will be in place once we merge Rep 2006.
Right. But I mean, and I'm not arguing with what Kyle said. However, in my opinion, there is a difference between accepting that they need to comply with the VDP and basically admitting that that's everything a secure package needs to do, which I think it's not. I mean, besides answering to vulnerability reports, there's good security practices that essentially code should follow. So I guess that if we start linking things together, then eventually we will reach this situation where we might need to answer what exactly it means to be secure, just to have VDP or to comply with the VDP we're putting together in 2006, or is there anything else that we as a group want to establish for us to at least confirm that good security practices are being followed?
I mean, I would say that sounds like stuff that would want to be extensions to Rep 2004, right? If we'd like to put that into like what the quality levels mean, it sounds like an extension to Rep 2004.
Well, and we've already had that conversation, right, Victor, with William, and he wasn't wanting to be prescriptive there. He was hoping that we could lay out some general guidelines and be a little more prescriptive in the developer guide. Right. But I think we were hoping to avoid doing that.
Well, I think there is still a good point from Victor, and like there is a link between what is in Rep 2004, which is a general, hey, here how ways to define quality levels, and then there is like, okay, this is a list of packages that we recommend people to use, and this one is going to be like needing to follow some like these claim some quality levels, but also I don't know what the prescription is, but like it seems that most of them are going to be using the AMENT linters enabled by default and not just random style, are going to be using like static analysis that are prescribed like or recommended for ROS developers. And so maybe that's also a thing where William was like, I don't want to be prescriptive in the rep, but anything that we think is necessary to have stable and safe and secure code should become a default in ROS2 tests and practices and become part of the developer guide. And so maybe the link later would be done by linking RED 2005 to what the ROS core process, like the ROS core packages processes. And it's not only you should have static analysis, like you should at least pass all our static analyzers and things like that. So there could be a way to link what is in RED 2005 and what is the ROS2 recommended set of tools to use.
So
Yeah, that makes
just
sense.
to keep us moving along, I'm going to capture that under some of the extra guidance that we need to provide. I think we agreed that there's a number of different security things aside from just responding to vulns. There are things we need to do. I think I want to bring us back to the idea that we get a report in. We get an email in. Somebody says there's a vul. We got to find the maintainer. And we talked a bit about that. Then I think the next thing we got to do is we got to gather information. That may be before or after we find the maintainer, but whoever's triaging. There were some ideas on what information we want to try and get the first time around. Is there anything else that you want to add about that? Like, imagine the first report comes in, we find a maintainer, we get some more clarifying information. Is there something else that we need to do before we hand it off to the maintainer?
The only thing I could think, Sid, would be to make sure that the reporter can provide a reproducer.
Big +1. That's exactly what I was going to say. Exactly the same. We're working very actively on these guys, and it's a pain in the ass. It's really a big pain. So if we can somehow, and Chris probably is the right guy to advise what they use internally at Open Robotics. But for example, we use Docker. If they can provide just a Docker, Linux container, whatever it is, doesn't need to be Docker. It can be a snap as well. But whatever, so that it's fast to reproduce the flow, that'll significantly accelerate.
Yeah, I like that idea, but that seems to me like it might be kind of heavy-handed for a lot of users.
Requirement.
Just showing either the 2 lines of something we need to run or the script or something. Just that it can't just say this exists. It's okay. Well, show us how to reproduce it. That's kind of how we work with Ubuntu with all the reports we get.
Okay, yeah, that's valid, and maybe you're right. Maybe that's an overkill. But then we need to ask them to provide version numbers and environment descriptions and related.
Of course, yeah. I would hope we do that. We kind of have know what version because there's only so many supported releases of ROS at one time, and we know what version should be on there. But asking for version numbers is kind of par for the course with CV reporting.
So that sounds great. I think if everybody's in agreement, what I'm going to do is just start taking this, again, the downstream process of how we process an inbound report. I'm going to sketch that up into a Google Doc and then share it with you for comment so that we can add in any more thoughts on how to reach maintainers, any thoughts on stuff we want to ask the reporter for, and then anything else that we haven't covered. But I think it's important.
Just one quick,
go ahead.
One quick question, Sid. Do you, so you're talking about the triaging and contacting the maintainer. And so in your opinion, would the triage involve assessment of like scoring or like assessing the vulnerability? Or is that you would just hand it over to the maintainer?
So I would
let them assess.
Yeah, I think there needs to be some assessment in there, and it all depends on the receiving team. So right now, there's an email distribution set up for the alias, for the security reporting alias. So that'll come in to a few folks at OR. It'll come in to Joe and myself. So in the ability that we're able to tell this is a high priority remote code execution versus this is just a low priority border case. We'll do that triage just to help with the downstream. But then, of course, once that triage is done, anybody downstream should be able to override it based on, digging deeper into coverage, and so on and so on. So does that help?
So if I got you right, Sid, you're saying that this first interaction is going to be done by Open Robotics, you yourself, as well as Joe. Is there any chance anyone else can participate to help with this first triaging, or is this going to be closed? And if so, because this I don't think we have discussed this, right?
Yeah, right now it's just a matter of maintaining the alias. So the security, what is it? Security at openrobotics.org is maintained by Chris. He requested that and set up distributions. We wanted at least one or two folks outside of Open Robotics that were actively in the security working group. As far as the ongoing membership, we actually hadn't contemplated that.
Yeah, I mean,
sorry, go ahead. I was just going to say, I think it's important to keep it controlled, right? I mean, we've talked about this in the past, how we want the security working group to be open and joinable by anybody, whereas a list like this should not be.
Yeah, that's totally right. And so I guess I would say I can add people as needed, but we should be careful about who we add in general. So basically what I'm looking for from all of you is a recommendation on how we determine who should be added, and then a list of people who meet that requirement who should be added, essentially.
Right. So on that, I have actually a pretty strong opinion, which is that I don't think only one external organization should be added, because this can induce bias in many senses. So I personally would feel much more comfortable if, besides Canonical, there is someone else from other organizations and other persons. Particularly, I would very much encourage Rafin White and Mikhail Arguedas to be over there, because frankly, they are the main guys behind ROS2, if they want, of course. And also, frankly, I would also nominate myself from Alias Robotics. We've been doing lots of heavy lifting on robot vulnerabilities. And as I said, I think it's best if this, I agree with the fact that not everyone can just join the security working group and right away get access to everything. But yeah, I think that this is probably the best first approach. But of course, this is just my biased feeling.
Yeah, I think one thing we have to do is, and those are good ideas, Victor, especially someone like Ruffner or Mikhail on this, or yourself. I think we should model this after the way the open source security mailing list run by the person goes by the name Solar Designer works. And basically, if you're going to be on this list, you have to give back. We can't have free riders who are just there to get early information. We have to all contribute back. We have to be responding to emails. It needs to be measurable in some way. So
yeah, I fully agree with you.
Yeah, that really goes along what I was about to say. I think it's there is quite some responsibility associated with it, and so it's also a matter of being willing to commit to actually spend the time and effort to help triage and assess and everything. And but I strongly agree that it was a bit of a surprise that a list was already made without the rest of the working groups. Oh, so now we have people that receive these. And so I agree with Victor that it would be nice to discuss it early. And I wouldn't nominate myself because I'm not sure I would commit to that task. But I would be very, very interested in having other organizations such as Alias that have been, I think, reporting the most and assessing the most robotics vulnerabilities overall. And so I'm strongly supportive of having other associations and groups in there.
Cool. Sounds like a good idea.
Yeah, I'll add that into the Google Doc, or we can add the comments and the internal backend process of how we handle the VDP.
Cool. So. I think I want to keep this moving along a little bit today. Sid, are we at I think we're at the working group interaction with the public at this point, right?
Yeah, let me move on just to that, and I'll just take a quick comment on that. As we were going through the VDP, one of the questions was we had added that paragraph in that said we're going to do best effort. Even if it's not in scope, if you have questions or something like that, you want to reach out to us, then we want to encourage that. But then that came up with the issue: how do we want the public to interact with this working group? And the thing is, right now, I think we have a couple of different ways. We have the matrix room, which seems to be the most active place. We have the security working group meeting, which this meeting is open, and folks can join it if they want. Although that may sidetrack us from our normal business. We have our public-facing GitHub repo, Anchor, where we're putting more things in. We have the Google group meeting, and then we have the wiki that holds the working groups. Those are the ones that come to mind. Where should we anchor our public face? How do you want to present ourselves to the public? Do we want to reshape that? I personally think we need one single entry point that has contact us through all these different places. What are your thoughts on how to interact with the public?
So wasn't Kyle the one that initially created this community repository within the GitHub organization? So I thought that was going to be kicked off over there. I definitely will fully support that.
Yeah, I think that is a sensible landing point. The wiki page could be as well. So far, it's really just been where we put notes, which has been useful. I know a number of us have been editing those to make sure they reflect reality, and so that's been nice. But we could actually add a bit of a header to that page, and I don't really have strong feelings. The community doc does have all that stuff already, but it hasn't really been published that way, I guess.
Yeah, it hasn't been really advertised, but I would cite for that because the goal of that README was actually to aggregate also all the various ways to contact the working group, and I would actually be against using the ROS wiki because I see the ROS wiki as the ROS 1 wiki, and I'm already confused every time I have to go check for ROS 2 working group stuff in there. Yeah. So I understand it's an easy way to store stuff, but I would not advertise it because I think it's gonna disappear eventually.
Yeah, I agree with Miguel. It is really the ROS 1 wiki.
Yeah, the one thing to highlight, guys, is that I think the real-time working group just had a request to create and copy our effort in the wiki. So especially Sid and Kyle, of course, and the rest of you guys from Canonical, I think it's been amazing what you've been doing in the wiki, and it's inspiring other groups. So we should definitely keep up with that.
So I think if Open Robotics wants it on the index.ros.org, give us a nice interface so that people can copy that instead.
So I think we agree that the community repo is the proper landing place. Is that? Yeah, do we agree?
Yes.
Okay.
All right. So then I think the only thing that we have to do that is I'll probably change the direction from the Open Robotics working groups page. Right now that points to our wiki. So I'll see, maybe we should change that to point to the community page, and then I'll try to just take a look at how to sync everything up on that.
I need to add the Google group there as well. I haven't done that yet.
Yeah, and if we could just everybody check to make sure if there's anything that's not public, just let us know. We'll update that, but it should all be open, I think. So thanks, Joe. That's all I got.
Cool. Mikhail, it is up to you to tell us about Rep 2004, which I believe we were kind of just talking about.
Yeah, so what's good is that we had a long discussion about the content of this rep itself and the other rep associated with it. And so I was just wondering if we want SROS2 to be complying with it. And if so, what are we aiming for? And can we lay out the groundwork so that we can claim a quality level? So the main question is do we want SROS2 to declare a quality level? And based on that, if we decide which quality level we want to claim, then we can lay out what are the tasks, the thing we need to do to be able to do it.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Hold on, I'm trying to pull it up. I don't know that we should. So it's part of the ROS core, really, right? I mean, it's what ROS space depends upon it, I think.
It is part of ROS core. Yeah.
Yeah. So does that? My question is that? Let me see this. Does that require us to be level 1?
No, I mean, most of the core is not going to make level 1 for Foxy. Most of the core is aiming for level 2 for the Foxy. Our original goal was level 1, but it's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
for now, level 2 is.
How do we feel about 2?
I guess I should have come with a list of like what we're complying with already to be able to tell.
Yeah, I'm trying to pull this down now.
Knowing that we like regarding like Foxy is very soon, and we still didn't make any much progress on the CI front. So
Right. Yeah,
I don't know how much we're going to be able to do.
We need to have some realistic expectations.
So what I can do, if you guys want, I can like just make a list of like what are the things we comply with, and then like put that in a draft PR in an issue, and then we can see if we can tick any more boxes by Foxy.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. Because a lot of these I think will meet. It's not
Well, what's good is like some of them you get to pick, so you need to get coverage.
Yeah.
I'm gonna pick more than 50%. Boom, we're done. No, so okay, I'll make a list and we'll see how far we're at.
All right, thank you, Mika.
Oh, sorry, that's it, Joe. Thank you.
Okay, cool. So then we can go back over some of our last action items. So how will we handle errors if 2 nodes are trying to use mismatched DDS? Has anybody looked at this one or remember the discussion we were having?
I threw a link in there. I know it looks like this is the oldest one, the oldest action item that we had in our minutes. It looks like that's being addressed. I just want to make sure if that actually captures what was intended from this meeting way back when.
I'll be honest, I have no recollection.
No, me neither.
I read the issue and I didn't see anything related to security in it, so I don't know.
Do we want to close this out? We can also close these out. You know, I pulled these out just to make sure we are addressing things that we had talked about. So
I'm gonna jump down to the bottom and go back since people might remember some of the more recent ones.
This one was before we even started leading the working group.
I know. So I'm gonna go with should we have a security workshop at ROSCON 2020?
So maybe we should first ask Chris, is there going to be a ROSCON 2020?
The only thing I can say at the moment is, you know, what Tully said is that it's going to be delayed. So it's not going to be in November. So, I mean, you can take that, given that it was already in late November, you can draw your own conclusions on when it might be. But
yeah, so if we do have, I think we talked about this, and maybe I think we were leaning more towards a birds of a feather discussion and not a full-on workshop. Does that ring
Yeah,
true for you?
that's my recollection as well. We didn't have enough new stuff to really put together another workshop, and we don't want to give a workshop that covers that. We don't want it to be the same as the last one, right?
Yeah. So if we do, Grace, if we do have a ROSCON December 2020 or whatever it is, we're interested in maybe having a shortened session where we can have an open discussion or something. So like a birds of a feather or a lightning talk or something.
Yeah, that'd be cool. That definitely would work. Otherwise, if you guys want, regardless of whether it's this year or next year, one thing we could do as a group is maybe coordinate ourselves and just file a speech that's maybe a bit longer, but that joins together different organizations. From my past experience, acting as a reviewer of ROSCON submissions, this was quite nicely considered. So this is also an idea, but nevertheless, birds of feather sounds really good.
Cool. Okay, we have less than a minute left. We can pick some of these topics up next time. I hope folks have a great week. If you have any questions, you can always reach out and we can keep these discussions going on in some of the comments. Thanks, everybody.
Awesome. Thanks, Drew.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye bye, everyone.
Take care.
Thank you.